a pretty impressive human rights victory in the state. And so I hope that all of you will join the three of us in pushing for abolition come next legislative session, come next year.
Thank you, Andrew. Before I ask any, I have a couple other questions, but I thought I would encourage everyone to go to the ACLU website, Abolish the Death Penalty in Connecticut. And there's some very simple statistics, and I thought maybe I'd just share a couple with you. The death penalty does not work. It's not a deterrent. It costs taxpayers far more than life in prison and discriminates on the basis of socioeconomic status, race, and geography. Two, since 1976, 123 death row prisoners have been released because they were innocent. In addition, at least 7 have been executed since 1976, even though they were probably innocent. Wrongful convictions often result from false confessions, which we've heard a great deal about in the film, which are frequent among people with mental retardation, mistaken eyewitnesses, jailhouse snitches, junk science, and prosecutorial abuse. Another point, most defendants are poor and forced to depend on incompetent or token representation. And I remember a number of years ago, I was teaching freshmen and had them spend quite a bit of time on the issue of capital punishment. And so they did a great deal of research and came up and saw the number of lawyers who, it's reported, had either slept through the trials right in front of people or appeared drunk. Those who killed white people are far more likely to get the death penalty than those who killed black people. And then this was probably most startling. Prosecuting a death penalty case is extremely expensive for a state and drains money that could be used for education and social programs. Capital punishment costs more than sentencing a prisoner to life without parole. The most comprehensive death penalty study in the country found that the death penalty cost North Carolina $2.16 million more per execution over the cost of sentencing murderers to life imprisonment. And the majority of these costs occur at the trial level. In its review of death penalty expenses, the state of Kansas concluded that capital cases are 70% more expensive than comparable non-death penalty cases, including the cost of incarceration. Now, my personal beliefs are not based on the cost either, but I think they are, these statistics are handy tools for all of us to go to the ACLU website and to have this kind of information available when we're talking to people, so that, you know, some of us who are either flaming liberals or leftist radicals or whatever, depending on, no, it's not. I'm called many things. And so when sometimes, you know, one gets defensive and you become that bleeding heart without using your mind and your statistics. So guard ourselves with evidence, I guess. I guess one of the things I wanted to ask Roberta, and thank you all for coming, how did you all take that veto? And how did you have an opportunity to voice your opinion privately to the governor, or is that something that's not done politically?
She really had a closed door during that process. I am not aware that she entertained people to come and see her. Wasn't that, I think it was a pretty close.
Absolutely, because there was the national executive director of the NAACP who tried to set up a meeting with her before she made her decision, and she turned it down flat.
And so we couldn't get in, we didn't get in there, and I know that some legislators wanted to try to go in there to plead their case. I believe the Archdiocese of Hartford, which was pretty involved, and was part of a working group that I was on with some of the legislators who were key to this for a number of years. But the thing that sort of threw all of us was her actual veto. And I wanted to share that with you because it was bizarre in its content. And I wanted to go over it. First of all, she quoted Bill Pettit, and where he has said, it is not a deterrent, it is not reformative, and it is not preventative. The wrongdoer deserves it. That's what it's about. So he's saying, I know it's not a deterrent, I know someone's not going to reform anyone, and I know it's not going to prevent this from happening again, but the bottom line is this is justice. She said, after she quoted that it was a deterrent. And the statistics supported it. She questioned and did not believe the cost argument. Perceptions, she felt, were on the issue were inconsistent, and she felt there was no role of race in the death penalty. And she then ended by attacking us, the legislature who had passed it, and said the problem was us. And that we were not doing our job because we had not required training for public defenders and prosecutors. So somehow, which is, it's my fault. I'm responsible for this. The deficit, I'm responsible for that. Every other fiscal crisis or calamity is apparently falls to the legislature. So I just wanted to share that with you because I read it over and over, and I kept it and went back to it today because I remembered at the time being so confused and thinking through, whatever logic or illogic she had in that decision. But we will hopefully will have new gov.
Yes.
Well, on that note, let me ask a question. Without any consideration to personality or party, there's politicians. We'll talk about the people running for governor at this point, or any of the politicians, with the exception of her. I guess what bothers me is that I get to the point where I have difficulty believing anything that someone is saying before an election. So, I would take the people running governor, their position. I'm not sure I actually take to heart what they're saying. And I don't know if that's that I'm older and more suspicious than I used to be, or can we hold them to the fire after, or how do we navigate these waters in terms of choosing whoever is running?
Well, I think I would say that anyone candidate that comes out and says in this election climate they would support abolition of the death penalty, I think you can be pretty sure that they will follow through on that. I think the fear that I have right now, again going back to the Pettit trial, is that if a candidate who is running for governor and I emphasize governor because we probably, would have the votes, again, I hope, to be able to do it. I don't think there'll be that much change in the legislature. The key is going to be whether or not, and because we probably wouldn't have enough for an override. So you really have to pass it, because you're not going to get the votes. I am fearful that a candidate that I'm supporting will believe is for abolition, that this is going to be used against him in the campaign. I think it's going to get ugly, this issue right now.
Uglier.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be used.
Specifically against.
Yes, because of the pettit trials going on right now.
Yeah.
I think it's an opportune time to do that, and you've seen the kind of negative reality on that, so. The death penalty is a lot bigger than what's happening in Bloomington. So can you imagine in this climate, someone taking a stand?
Yeah, just one thing I'd add is, especially in the videos, one thing that came up is how it's important for politicians to show that they're tough on crime and that, supported the political suicide. And that was certainly, I think, more true in the 90s than it was today, because, and all the legislators voted on this, or a few acts voted on this. And we'll see if there's that much change. I'm just predicting, I don't think there's going to be that much change. In New Jersey, when they repealed the death penalty in 2007, no one who voted for repeal lost their seat. And I think the death penalty is an emotional issue. It gets a lot of coverage. But at the end of the day, people care about jobs. People want to get rid of wasteful government spending. And I know it's a very tough vote, but I don't know if this is what voters are going to be going to the polls about. And if you look